Bonsoir, Annie. Good evening and welcome to our regular council meeting. Wish to send a warm welcome to everybody. This beautiful, beautiful weather we're enjoying for the middle of May, hard to believe. But so hopefully tonight's meeting won't be too long and we can get through this agenda rather quickly. So I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I need a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda. Moved by Dave and seconded by Renee. All those in favor? Thank you. Any disclosures of pecuniary interests?
I have
Dave?
one, Madam. Yeah.
Yes.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I have a pecuniary interest in item 5.3.1. It's a resolution to award the contract for Pivo Road rehabilitation. So my company has submitted a quote to one of the contractors bidding on this work to subcontract the ditching part of this tender. So I will not.
Okay, so noted. Thank you. Any other disclosures of pecuniary interests? Seeing none. We do have a delegation tonight, and that's a presentation by Roxanne and Mark from Baker Tilly for our annual financial report. So I guess Roxanne and Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you and you can do your presentation.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. Wishing you all a good night, and it is a beautiful evening, so we'll take advantage while we can. So for tonight, and I know you've alluded to keeping this meeting as quick as possible, so we'll get to it right now. Mark will present the comparative analysis as well as the financial statements. You'll see that we have prepared, like we normally do, a more condensed version of the financial statement just for sake of presenting the information through the meeting. However, I believe you have received a copy of the draft financial statement. So if as we go along, you have more detailed questions about the statements themselves and not just the numbers that are going to be reported on the presentation, by all means, please feel free to stop us and we can get through those questions. When Mark has done his analysis or his presentation, I'll go through some other items that I need to be able to document with council and discuss, and to be able to document our files and to get through some points that our standards do require that we have a discussion with those charged with governance. So once Mark is done, I'll go through that stuff and then we'll see if there's any final questions. So I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Roxanne. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. As Roxanne mentioned, we just have a summary of the financial statements to present today. For our independent auditor's report, we've isolated just the opinion paragraphs of our report for our presentation. And in particular, the second paragraph is kind of the key paragraph of that opinion, which simply states that, in our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the consolidated financial position of the corporation, the municipality of French River, as at December 31st, 2020, and its consolidated financial performance and its consolidated cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So it is a clean opinion again this year. Our audit report has not changed from prior year. Again, good results for the audit. For the statement of financial position, we've laid this out in a few slides. The financial assets as of December 31st, 2020, amount in total to 8.5 million, which are represented by cash of 3.9 million, cash related to the Heritage Centre of 1.5 thousand, taxes receivable of 740,772, accounts receivable, which we've broken out into federal, provincial, and other of 262,000, 75,000, and 340,000 respectively, as well as term deposits of 3 million, notes receivable of 44,000, and inventory held for resale of 48.7 thousand. With regards to financial liabilities at December 31st, 2020, accounts payable and accrued liabilities were 827,000 at the end of the year 2020, with other accounts payable related to the Heritage Centre of 1.5 thousand, other current liabilities of 3.9 thousand, deferred revenues of 597,000, Deferred revenues for obligatory reserve funds of $412,300, accrued interest 14.6, municipal debt of $3,261,000, and landfill closure and post-closure liability of $1.1 million. For non-financial assets, the net financial asset balance was $2.2 million. For non-financial assets, which represent tangible capital assets, prepaid expenses, and inventory, these amounted to a total of $17.6 million to finish the year with an accumulated surplus of $19.8 million. For the consolidated statement of operations, in summary, the revenues amounted to $8,734,448, with expenses of $8,174,758, as well as government transfers that related to capital of $519,416, for an excess revenues over expenses or a surplus for the year of $1,079,106. Just a breakdown of what those revenues, that total of 8.7 million represents. These would be net taxation of 4.9 million, government transfers of 2,149.7 thousand, user charges of 1.1 million, and other revenues of 491,226. Financial activities related to the expenses of the municipality for 2020 represented by general government, 1.6 million, protection services, 1.3 million, transportation services of 2.2 million, environmental services of 1,033,000, health services of 890,000, social and family services, 427.5 thousand, recreation and cultural services of 539.7 thousand, and finally planning and development of 95,678 for the total of $8,174,758. Just a different breakdown of those same expenditures for the year, as would be found in the segmented information note of the financial statements. Salaries and wages and benefits accounted for 2.3 million of those expenses, with long-term debt charges, so interest, of 164.5 thousand. Materials, contracted services, rents, and financials were 4.5 million, with amortization of 1,114,000. The consolidated statement of change in net financial assets simply explains how we get to a net financial asset at the beginning of the year of 1.5 million to the net financial assets at the end of the year of 2.2 million, which is simply an excess of revenues over expenses, as had previously been mentioned, of 1,079,000. And we account for changes in those non-financial assets. So amortization of tangible capital assets, proceeds on disposal of tangible capital assets, change in inventory and prepaid expenses, any gains on sales of capital assets, and acquisition of tangible capital assets, which represents a decrease in the net financial assets overall for the year of 766,510. With regards to accumulated surplus, and this would be in note 11 of your draft financial statements, the surplus for the year is broken out into invested intangible capital assets of 17.5 million, the French River Public Library Board, which is consolidated in your financial statements, for 155,000, a general surplus of 1.1 million, as well as unfunded surpluses related to municipal debt and landfill closure and post-closure of 3.2 million and 1.1 million respectively, as well as the reserve set aside for specific purposes of 5.4 million for the accumulated surplus at the end of the year of $19.8 million. I know that was a fairly quick rundown of the financial statements. Were there any questions related to those key statements?
Yeah, I have one. If I may, through you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I can't see your faces except for, so just go ahead.
Could you go to slide number 3, if you don't mind? I think it's the right one. I was trying to remember which slide it was. Maybe one before or one after. Sorry. No. It had to do with the. Okay, here it is. So deferred revenue obligatory reserve funds. Could you explain for all of us what that is, and why would there be a big difference between one year to the next?
Absolutely. So the deferred revenues obligatory reserve funds would include any gas tax funds that had been received that might not have been spent and would be carried over into 2021. The reason for the increase in particular is this also includes the Safe Restart COVID relief funding that would have been received from the ministry, both phase 1 and phase 2 that had the cash received in 2020. For which only a small portion had been spent in 2020 and carried into 2021 and beyond. So in particular, the Safe Restart funding is representative of the increase in 2020.
All right, thanks. One more question, which is more general. So under your the first page where you talk about your disclosure, the opinion. So here's sort of like a loaded question, but you know, when an auditor looks at financial statements such as this, and you guys make an opinion towards the numbers that you see before you, what kind of to what extent is your opinion? What I'm trying to say this. To what extent does it have? No, okay. Let me rephrase this. So let's use Laurentian University as an example. Okay, so. All of a sudden you have consolidated statements and there's no opinions that states that there's any issues, and then a month later in a year you find out that there's some severe financial issues. So I'm very, very confident and overly confident that we're not in that situation. But the question is that, you know, what reassurance does a corporation like us or municipality have with regards to a statement like this that says that there's no issues, and then on the road we find out that there could be an issue? So I'm not trying to ask you to analyze the Laurentian University experience, excuse the pun, but just using that as an example.
With regards to the work that we do, so if we look at even going back to the balance sheet, which would be slide 3 and then slide 4, which kind of gives the financial position of where the municipality was at that point in time. So throughout our audit process, we do a lot of risk analysis where we do try to see where in the financial statement areas could there be risk of misstatements so that we can do enough audit work to be able to mitigate that risk. So we do that as standard procedures. We do a lot of testing with regards to standards with our revenue expenditures. We'll do tests of controls. We've done different other sample sizes and samples we've done to test to make sure all controls, everything is in place, that the expenses are properly supported. But we also do some type of benchmarking, which is where we were going to go next into the next slide. Also comparing the municipality with what the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing deems as low, moderate, and high risk on certain ratios that we will be presenting. So that kind of gives us comfort as to where we're saying that the municipality is in a good financial position just because of how you position compared to what the ministry considers a low risk. And you'll see when we present that most of the ratios that we have picked, the municipality is finding itself in a low risk, which means we're in a good position. Again, the only thing we can do based on our audit is to show where we're at. If we even look at the cash position that we're in and even the reserves that we have, so like in cash right now, if we take the cash position and the term deposit, we're sitting at about almost $7 million worth of cash. We've got reserves of 5.1 or $5.4 million worth of reserve, which shows that we still have more than sufficient even operating cash, even above and beyond what has been set aside in reserves. And also with the fact that even if we look at our cash position and our total expenses, if we look that we have about $8 million worth of annual operating budget, if I divide that by 12 and say that it's about a $680,000 worth of monthly operating expenses, and we have $3.9 million worth of cash, like we have enough cash even to float the municipality for about almost 6 months before we'd even have, that's assuming nothing gets collected. So just based on those types of ratio, you don't have a lot of debt. you don't have, and the debt you do have, you have the long-term assets that kind of cover them. You've got accumulated surplus, and not all of which has been tied to tangible capital assets. So you are in a healthy position just based on everything that we're seeing. And again, it's strictly just based on ratio at a point in time. But to me, the comparison to the other municipalities that we're seeing, as well as the benchmarking from the ministry as to what they consider low risk, is telling me we're in a good position.
All right, thank you.
That answers your question, or if I...
Bang on, thank you.
Okay. And you're not the first entity, just so that has asked us that question. I think what's going on in our region is causing a lot of people to question, just to make sure and get that comfort.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Other questions? I can't see you, so just speak up, because I only see Rick, Renee, and that's it. If
there are no other questions, we'll go into some of the key financial matters and benchmarking, and very similar to what we would have been presenting in prior years as well. We take a lot of this information from the financial information returns, as well as comparing to other municipalities within the same region. That information is all public, so we're comfortable kind of using those as benchmarks for this presentation. Just with regards to the tangible capital assets for 2020, just some of the key additions for the year. We put in a visual format, and there was about 2.2 million of additions this year, which, you know, the bulk of that you can see is roads and bridges of 837,000, and that's quite typical for the municipality of French River. For the net financial assets, the 5-year trend, so if we go back to 2016 up to 2020, so we see a very positive trend with regards to this metric within your financial statements. So touches on you know, a bit of what Roxanne was mentioning earlier, and the strength of the municipality's financial position. The tax arrears ratio, so this is just a percentage of taxes collectible that are in arrears, essentially. So what the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing has determined as, I guess, a moderate risk would be anywhere between a 10 and 15%. And the municipality does find themselves at about 12%. But comparing to other municipalities within the region, it's about average. And probably a better metric would be the second slide, which shows that tax arrears ratio over a 5-year trend. So in particular, and it's a bit backwards, the 2020 column is that first column you see, but there's definitely been a very strong improvement, a strong trend on the tax arrears, especially as of late. And especially considering 2020 with pandemic and the waiving of some penalties and interest that was done to alleviate some of the pain of taxpayers in particular. That's still quite a strong position overall. The total reserves ratio, so essentially what this would represent is what's reserves as a percentage of operating expenses. So another way to put that would be what is available for future needs or contingencies. And Roxanne alluded to it, but you can see here as just a benchmark compared to other municipalities, the municipality of French River is in a very, very strong position with regards to its reserves. And again, a 5-year trend would show that as well. Fairly comparative to maybe what it was a few years ago, and there's going to be fluctuations within these numbers, but overall quite strong. The ministry views anything more than 20% as being low risk and well exceeding that threshold. Debt servicing ratio would just be essentially how much of each dollar raised is spent on debt. And again, this shows very positive, very strong financial position. Essentially anything lower than 5% would be viewed as low risk. The municipality is well below that percentage. So again, nothing really of concern. And because the municipality has not incurred any new debt over the past several years, that has been coming down quite a bit annually as well. This last ratio that we've put together, the asset consumption ratio, this is essentially just representing your total tangible capital assets and approximately where they sit within what we call an estimated useful life. So if a building is estimated to be about 40 years and it's about 20 years old at that point, it would show as about 50%. And this is overall, and you're approximately at that 50% level. And it was requested by us last year from council to maybe have a breakdown of certain key tangible capital assets, because a building would be quite a bit different than road ways and equipment, et cetera. So we have prepared an additional slide that just breaks that down into some of the key tangible capital assets. So the buildings, roads, vehicles, equipment, sanitary sewers, and landfill, for example. And in particular, it's the sanitary sewers that is quite a bit further along on its estimated useful life. So if the average is about 40 years and it's reached about 90% of that, there might be an expectation that there's some sanitary sewers that would require replacement. But also keep in mind, these are very estimate based. These standards of 40 years, for example, for a sanitary sewer, that's just a kind of a standard rate that would be utilized. They could last longer, they could last less than 40 years. But it is still some food for thought that we thought important to bring up with the municipality. Essentially, that is it for the few benchmarks that we wanted to bring to the municipality's attention and council's attention. Any particular questions on any of those? Or
I have one more question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
If I may. So I'm going to go on the other side of the rainbow here from the last question. So the fact that our municipality is in really good shape, as you pointed out from the financial statement, let's say from a taxpayer's perspective, would you say that they could say that we're in such a position that we may not need to raise as much taxes as we do in the future? So I'm just trying to see if we're in a good shape that we're in too good of a shape, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So what would be your comment on that?
With regards to that, I think without having all of the information, that's kind of a loaded question that makes it a little bit difficult to answer. Just with respect that we don't necessarily have, I think the biggest piece, and this is where maybe either Mark Gagnon or Mark Fleury might be able to chime in, but with regards to the fact that there probably is an asset management plan that may be looking at what the next 10 years may require. The fact that we're in a healthy position now doesn't mean that we can let off the gas, let's say, and start decreasing rates or decreasing reserves, because there may be some significant plans that are there that we don't necessarily have the piece to be able to answer that question to really provide you the right answer. So I think without knowing that piece and knowing what's coming, I think all of those factors have to be brought in to see if what we have in place, is that even just the start of what we need to be able to do all the works that are coming up, or is it there's an evaluation that may come up with that answer that says maybe we can ease off a little bit, but without that piece, I'm not in a position to be able to answer that one more than that.
That's a fair answer. No, thank you very much.
Maybe just for your information, I'll chime in, Madam Mayor, if that's okay. It's Mark.
I can't hear you, Mark.
Apology. Can you hear me now?
A little better.
Okay, sorry. I'm having problems with my computer. So there's two major projects that council is aware of that the municipality is anticipating over the next few years. Monte-Gay estimated to be 1.3 million, no funding in place yet. And also it's apropos that the auditors mentioned the sewer system. It's a project that we've been working on for the last 2 years, which is estimated to be between 4 and 4.5 million. So just to answer some of your questions in terms of the long-term planning that's and potential financial commitments going forward.
Thanks.
So are there any other questions on either presentation, the financial statements, before I get into my last little piece of what I need to be able to discuss with council? Okay. So if there isn't, so based on our standards that we use for doing audits as well as our accounting standards, there are a certain level of things that I just need to be able to have a discussion with. So it's not necessarily that it's got to be in writing or anything. I just need to know that I've at least discussed it with council at this point. So one of the things that we need to talk about is what our responsibilities are as auditors, what responsibilities are for council, as well as what responsibilities are for management. So as an auditor, my key responsibility is to provide an opinion on the audited statement as what we've presented tonight. We do perform our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. And part of our work that we do when we perform the audit is we do assess the risk tied to the financial statements, certain areas. We do look at the policies, the accounting policies that are used to provide these financial statements to assess if they are the right type of policies to be used. So some of the responsibility for council, it is to act as a liaison between us and management. It is to review the audited statements, draft like we're doing tonight, to be able to approve them. It is to let us know if there's anything that you're aware of that we need to be made aware of that may have an impact on the financial statement. Part of our audit process, just to break it down, so just to give a better understanding as when we say we do an audit, what that means. So just to break it down into 4 major categories, we always start with an initial planning of the audit. And then from that information that we've gathered, we develop an audit plan, then we execute that plan. And then after that, we report and assess on performance, which at the stage we're at tonight, when we're presenting our draft financial statement, we're at the last stage of our audit process. Our audit approach that we used this year to do the audit was a combination of test of controls for the payroll stream, as well as doing what we call substantive testing for purchases and revenues. So essentially that's saying we took a sample of invoices, we traced to, let's say for grants, we traced to agreements. For purchases, we would have taken a sample of different purchases and traced the supporting documentation, as well as tracing to supporting documentation for a lot of the line items that you see on the statement of financial position. So your assets and liabilities. I am indicating that there was no significant audit risks that were identified throughout our planning. As Mark indicated, the audit opinion was a clean audit opinion again this year. No new accounting policies were adopted throughout the year. And some of the key estimates that were used in the financial statements, and you'll see it is in one of the notes to the statements, and even Mark alluded to this fact that the useful life of tangible capital assets and the amortization, again, useful life is always based on an estimate as to what management believes the life of the asset will be. The allowance for doubtful accounts on taxes receivable, as well as the estimate for the landfill closure and post-closure care liability, since that liability is really deemed based on engineer reports that the municipality obtains to be able to tell us what's the useful life of the landfills and how many years we may have left. Materiality that was used with regards to doing our audit of the financial statements, which is what allows us to state in our opinion in all material respects. So we can't, when we audit, look at every single transactions, because I don't think Mark Gagnon and Mark Fleury would like it if we were there for about a year to audit every single transaction. So we do based on materiality concept and based on our standards and the activities of the municipalities, we use the expenses as the base to calculate our materiality, because that seems to be one of the most consistent bases to use and to show what the operations are. Based on our standards, we're allowed a factor of anywhere from 1% to 3%, and we use 3%. So the materiality that we use to do our audit work and to provide our opinion was based on 240,000. We are confirming that we are independent of the municipality as a firm. So Baker Tilly is independent of the municipality. And a few other matters to note. All the related party transactions are disclosed in the notes, and the key related party is the library. So everything has been disclosed in the statements. We are confirming that there's no significant transactions that were entered into by the entity that you need to be made aware of. There's no significant matters arising from the audit discussed with management, and there was no disagreements. We are asking that management sign a letter reaffirming all the declarations that they've made to us. So it's a standard letter that management provides to us just to say that everything we were supposed to be told or made aware of, we have been, and the letter has been received. We have not identified any deficiencies in the internal control system. So essentially there are no recommendations when it comes to the systems in place. They are operating as is intended to be, and they're working well. Just the last 2 points. So we are indicating that we are not aware of any instances of illegal acts, fraud, intentional misstatements, or errors were noted throughout the audit, as well as no instances of non-compliance of laws and regulations were identified through our audit. So, so that's pretty much some of the key items that I needed to at least say that I've discussed with council. With the last point that I just discussed, the intentional errors, misstatements, fraud, non-compliance, etc., I need to ask council the same question. Are you aware of anything in those respects that we need to be made aware of that we may not have? I'm seeing no's as shaking his head. Okay. Last little question, and this may be more for Mark Gagnon and Mark Fleury. We've pretty much through our audit work had confirmed to about April 23rd that there was no subsequent event that have occurred from January 1st to April 23rd that may have an impact on the audit. But is there anything from April 23rd to today that may have an impact on the audit that we need to be made aware of?
No, Roxanne.
Mark, no, okay. So that is pretty much it for us, unless there's any other questions, but I think that kind of covers the statements, plus just a recap of how the audit has gone and just some of the key points.
Thank you, both Roxanne and Mark, for a detailed presentation. Any questions from council? Randy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not really so much a question, just a comment or statement to Mark Gagnon and Mark Fleury. Thank you very much for making this process clear. Again, this year, you've done a wonderful job, and you have all staff has worked very hard to put the municipality in a great financial position. And I'm very confident, as I'm sure the rest of council is, that things are being handled very immaculately. And I'm very proud to say that I'm a member of this council. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Randy. Any other comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, we need a resolution to adopt the financial audited report.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay, I need a mover and a seconder for approval. Moved by Bob and seconded by Dean. Any further discussion?
Oh, I'm just going to read the motion.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I'm ahead of you.
It is duly moved and seconded. Be it resolved that council approves the audited financial statements prepared by Baker Tilly Chartered Accountants for the year ending December 31st, 2020.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Pass. Again, thank you very much, Roxanne and Matt, and look forward to next year's report.
Thank you. And I just want to, again, thank Mark for all the help and assistance throughout the audit. It's always a pleasure, and it always an audit that goes extremely well. So again, thank you for all your help. And I wish everybody a great summer, and we'll see you next year. Have a good
For sure.
Bye.
Thank to both of you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. Let's move on to general government. And Mark will give a COVID report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just not much of an update since last week it was announced that the stay-at-home order was extended to June 2nd, which is the same day of our next meeting. Therefore, operationally, everything remains the same. Facilities remain closed except for the use of the Albion Community Center for vaccinations. On the vaccination front, as you're all aware, the province opened bookings for individuals 18 plus throughout the province, and that started on Tuesday. We actually had a clinic today in Albion, of which some of the 18-year-olds took advantage of, which was nice to see. On a positive note, Sudbury East population, 44% of our population in Sudbury East has been vaccinated to date. And we're projecting as an implementation committee that we should be reaching about 78 to 80% by mid-June, which is a tremendous news for our area. And again, thanks goes out to all the partners who are helping to work at the vaccination center, including our firemen, our bylaw, and some of our office staff that also support UniV and public health and the paramedics. Other good news is, as you may be aware, the age group of 12 to 17 have been approved for Pfizer vaccines, starting hopefully by end of May, beginning of June. And I'm happy to let council know that the June 17th meeting in St. Charles will be dedicated strictly to youth and family of the youth for vaccination of 12 to 17. And an additional clinic will be not added, but supported on the 24th in Albin, where some of the vaccines will be put aside for the same age group. So we're hoping that by the time this is sort of towards later June, we should be reaching close to 85% of our population with the opening of this age group. So tremendous news. Again, we encourage everybody who's eligible to get vaccinated to please do so. Alors, un gros merci à tout le monde qui ont pris le temps d'aller prendre leur vaccin. C'est bien apprécié et on espère que tout le monde qui sont éligibles pour leur vaccin prennent le temps pour pouvoir le prendre et aider de se récupérer de cette pandémie ici. Alors, un gros merci, Madame Maire.
Merci, Marc. Just on a quick note, even though we're getting close to that magic number, people still have to remain safe. And I'd like to remind everybody, you still have to wear your masks when you go out. The gatherings are still not allowed. And don't think that because you had your first shot that it's the magic cure. So there's still lots of people that need to be vaccinated and you still have to be careful. Any questions for Mark? Seeing none, let's move on to 5.1.2, and that's a resolution to adopt the procedure bylaw. So that's a bylaw to return to having 2 regular meetings of council. And we had discussions last week. And so now it's here for a formal change. So everybody's had a chance to go through the material. Are there any questions? Seeing none, then I need a mover and a seconder to adopt the proposed changes. Moved by Randy, seconded by Rick.
There, it is duly moved and seconded. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-32, being a bylaw to govern the calling, place, and proceedings of meetings for the municipality of French River, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. 5.2, well, we just went through finance with the audited report. 5.3, Public Works and Environmental Services, and I believe Martin is somewhere in Technoland and he's going to appear. There he is. All right. To you, Martin.
Good day, everyone. Just pulling up my paperwork here. 5.5.3 is the capital roads. So this year we had asked council to put Pivo Road up for capital works. We got 6 bids this year. And we would like to recommend to council that French River Contracting be awarded the bid for a total cost of $183,717.75.
Thank you. Any questions for Martin? Dean.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wondered how close that amount comes to what we were budgeting or thinking of cost there.
Go ahead, Martin.
Do you have that number in front of you? I don't have the number in front of me.
Marc Fleury.
Give me 1 minute. It was under budget.
Under, that's good. That's enough. If it was under.
That's enough for you, AD.
if I recall, it was in the neighborhood of 215, 220, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
Let me just see one second. Got too many things open.
Amazing how much there's a big difference between all 6 quotes.
I know. Randy,
We had the budget was 241,697.
Wonderful.
excellent, excellent. Randy,
It was a related, unrelated question for Martin about the tender for Dry Pine Bay Road, when that was going to be tendered. I thought while we were waiting for the quote to come in on the other, I would ask.
that's,
sorry.
just to clarify, that's for the double treated surface?
Correct.
Just to answer Councillor Randy, the tender was opened today and will
okay.
be brought to the following council meeting.
Okay, perfect. Because the dust is getting quite bad over there. I'm getting some complaints. So thank you.
All right. Any other questions with regards to this tender? Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Randy and seconded by Bob.
It is duly moved and seconded. Be it resolved that council awards the contract for the rehabilitation of Pivo Road to French River Contracting for an amount of $183,717.75.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Martin?
Perfect. Following on the agenda, we got the tender 2021-07, which is the supply and application of dust suppressant for the year of 2021. We had 2 bids this year, Pollard Distribution and Dali Dust Control. And Public Works Department would like to ask council to approve the tender to Pollard Distribution for a total cost of $63,525.
Thank you. Any questions for Martin? Dave?
Is this the same contractor we had last year?
No, it's not. This is the contractor we had in previous years. We've used these guys multiple times, just not last year.
Okay, good. Because last year I didn't find that. I don't know if it's their mixture or what it was, but I didn't find it. It did a very good job last year compared to previous years. That's good. Thank you.
Randy?
Oh.
You're on mute, Randy.
I apologize. Through you, Madam Chair. I was just going to ask a similar question as to what product they were planning on applying. Is there a different product that different suppliers use?
Last year, we did a combination. We used calcium chloride and we used magnesium as well. I wanted to try something different, so we used magnesium on some roads and calcium on the majority of our roads. I didn't find too much of a difference between the 2 products. So this year we just put it out for calcium, and this is what we received. So,
was there a cost savings with the magnesium or the chlorine?
it was the matter of like 1/10 of a cent. It was very, very close. The only downside that I've heard from the product was it's more corrosive. So when they apply it, so I just kind of deal with it.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder for awarding of this contract. Renee and Dean?
Seconded, be resolved that council awards the contract for the supply and application of dust suppressant to Pollard Distribution Inc. for an amount of 0.3025 per liter for 2021 plus applicable taxes.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. All right, let's move on. And thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Oh, sorry.
Question, Giselle. Just, do you know when they're gonna start sweeping the roads?
Yes, there is a possibility of it starting tomorrow. We got a call today saying that they're mobbing out, so either tomorrow or Friday they will be starting.
Oh, well, good news. Thank you.
Other questions for Martin? Seeing none, let's move on to 5.4, Recreation and Community Services. So before you, you have a copy of the volunteer recognition policy and the changes that are being proposed to the committee, to this award. Renee, you're the chair. Did you have any comments with regards to?
No, not really any comments. We just made a few little changes just to open it up to probably individuals outside the municipality if they qualify. Some of them are not permanent residents, but do stay here 6 months, 7 months, 8 months throughout the year. So we did open up some sections to them because it is important also to recognize some of those people that do help us out for those amount of times. And that was basically, and a few little, the name change, a recognition award instead of appreciation. Little things like that, but other than that, it was good. And that's all pretty much have to say. I know that Karin did mention that this year, because we probably won't be able to do a ceremony again. Maybe we do out some blasts on every month for different volunteers, just in order to still recognize people within the community if we can't host an event. So, but it's to be discussed and brought to council further down the road.
Okay. Questions for Renee? I do have one change I'd like to propose if council doesn't mind. It's under the selection committee and the process. Just to add this line here, that the committee may request additional information on any of the candidates. And the reason that I'm suggesting that goes in is because some people are more literate than others, and some people are really have a flair for writing, and others, even though their heart's into it, may not be as well capable of putting information together. And I think that does a disservice to potential nominees. So I trust that the committee, if they get a nomination form and it's not complete, that this would allow them to go back to the nominator and receive more information. So that's my suggestion. If council is comfortable with that, we can add that.
I think it's good, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
No problem. Good idea.
All right. So Madam Clerk, you're going to add that line to the policy so we can approve it?
Yes. So it's going to be added to under selection committee and process. So it's going to be added as number 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a good suggestion.
Yeah. Okay. Having said this, Dean?
Just a question that I have, Madam Mayor. This is it's presumed to be in October. We usually have it in October or very early November, I guess. But it would seem to me that there shouldn't be any problem in having an actual people attending kind of a deal to have these awards. It means so much to the recipients and of the awards and the people who attend to do it in person. I would just hope that we don't lock ourselves into not doing it if it's going to be possible to get together.
I believe that the awards are usually, the volunteer recognition is the first Wednesday in December. And I'm sure the committee, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the next 3-4 months. I don't think we're saying there won't be a formal award. It's just that we can't say we are going to have one because we don't know what's going to happen in the next 3-4 months. I'm hopeful that we can gather again because I agree with you, Dean. I think it's far more personal if it's done in person than it is if it's done Zoom wise. But if we can't gather, then I think that's the second best that we can do, right?
Can't gather, we're not going to. That's all there is to it. But if we possibly can. I
Yeah.
hope we do.
Yeah. I think everybody's on the same page for that for sure. Okay, so having said this, I need a mover and a seconder to approve the revised policy. So Renee and Randy.
It is duly moved and seconded, whereas at the meeting held April 27th, 2021, the Recreation and Community Advisory Committee discussed the annual, I'm getting mixed up here, discussed the recognition policy. Now therefore be it resolved that council adopts the volunteer recognition policy and agrees to recognize our volunteers in a virtual fashion in 2020 as deemed appropriate by the committee and staff.
Okay, so it would be 2021 virtually, if appropriate, I would say.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Okay. All right. So that covers us for both virtual or in person. Okay. Any further discussion on it? All those in favor? Thank you. There are no reports for emergency and protection services, nor is there anything for building planning and development. Is there any correspondence, Madam Clerk?
There is none.
None? Okay, so let's go to consent agenda. Resolution to adopt the items contained in the consent agenda. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Rick and Bob.
Duly moved and seconded, be resolved that council approves the items of the consent agenda under section 7.1 and receives the items under section 7.2.
Thank you. All those in favor, do you have a question, Dave? No, okay, you're just, you're ahead of me now, right? Okay, got it. All those in favor? Thank you. There are no notices of motion. Madam Clerk, we're okay for that?
Yes.
Okay. Announcement inquiries. Just want to remind everybody that June is Seniors Month, so perhaps, Mel, we can have another proclamation, even though there's no celebration again this year for our seniors. I think it would be nice if at the June meeting we can have a proclamation done.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Rick.
More of a question maybe for Mark. So I've had many people, especially as the boating season is starting, people are asking, can they launch their boat, or is there any changes to that?
Mark?
I'm thinking. I've been answering so much questions about cottages and lodges and motels, and I just haven't got anything on boating at this point in time. The only permission that I'm aware of is that if somebody needs to access their cottage to check on it, they're entitled to launch their boat. And I see Councillor Randy may have information that, I'm sorry, that question just hasn't come up, and I haven't really read up on it since last June.
Randy?
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you. Being in the business, I kind of know a little more. So any business or municipal property isn't allowed to launch boats at this point, but private residents who have their boat in their own property or have private slips are allowed to launch. So there are people out on the lakes. If you own property and launch from your own property, they can't do anything about that, but your businesses and camps can't charge people and launch publicly. I also hear that in the 26th of May, we should be returning to outdoor golfing and such activities too, I heard today. It's on the table and very likely going to happen.
Great. Dean?
Just as a comment, it's kind of a double-sided deal, because at the public access at the Murdoch River, there were all kinds of boats put in the water on the weekend. for fishing. Fishing season started Saturday, of course, and so there were lots of boats on the water down here on the main channel of the French.
Yeah. Well, as Randy said too, if you own a boat and you own your own property, of course you can launch it. So, but hopefully that will be resolved within the next week or so. So the other answer is, I guess, call the province, but I believe that you're correct, Randy.
Yeah.
It's kind of a shame too that people have complete access to this public launching facility at the Murdoch River, but somebody like the supply post down there are not permitted to launch boats for people. I just don't understand the rationale behind all this.
Well, there's a lot of stuff in that, I have to tell you, in the legislation that doesn't seem fair or is contradictory to what the purpose is. And if you're trying to figure out why, you'll lose sleep over it. So I've learned to say, I don't know. So anything else under inquiries or questions? Seeing none, there is no closed session tonight. So with that, I need a resolution to adopt the confirmation bylaw. So I need a mover and a seconder. Renee and Dave.
Second, it be resolved that bylaw 2021-33, being a bylaw to confirm the proceeding of the Council of the Municipality of French River at a meeting held May 19th, 2021, be read at first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Before we adjourn, just want to remind everybody it's a long weekend. Please be safe out there. The black flies are alive and well, especially in the last few days. So Randy, did you have something?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just a quick comment as we close up here. Maybe for Seniors Month, we could recognize Ron Garbett.
He'll appreciate that.
He's not forgotten, Ron, if you're online.
No, Ron is not forgotten at all. Good point. So everyone, please be safe. Have a great weekend. And thank you for tuning in. So on that note, I need a resolution to adjourn. Moved by Randy and seconded by Bob. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Mel. It's just to adjourn. All those in favor? Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Good night, everyone.